Captain Jake Morrison was drinking his morning coffee when the alarm started screaming. The coffee mug fell from his hand and broke on the metal floor of his office. Outside his window, space looked different. Where there used to be only stars, now there were huge ships floating in the darkness. Jake ran to the control room of Research Station Galileo 7. His crew was already there, staring at the screens with wide eyes. The ships outside were massive. Each one was bigger than their entire station. The metal hulls were smooth and silver like mirrors reflecting the light of distant stars. "How many ships are there?" Jake asked his second-in-command, Lieutenant Amy Foster. 12 big ones, sir, and maybe 50 smaller ones, Amy said. Her voice was shaking a little. They just appeared out of nowhere. No warning at all. Dr. Lisa Chen looked up from her computer. She was the station's expert on alien life, though she had never actually seen any aliens before today. "Captain, I'm getting signals from the ships. They're trying to talk to us." Jake walked over to Lisa's station. "Can you understand what they're saying?" "Not yet, but I'm working on it." "The computer is trying to figure out their language." Lisa's fingers moved quickly over the keyboard. "Wait. I think I'm getting something." The main screen in the control room suddenly lit up. A face appeared on it. Jake had never seen anything like it before. The alien had pale blue skin that looked like it was made of crystal. Its eyes were large and silver, and it had no hair. When it spoke, its voice sounded like music mixed with the sound of breaking glass. "Primitive creatures of this place," the alien said. The computer was changing, its words into English. "I am Empress Veltara of the Zephyrian Empire. You will surrender to us now." Jake looked around the room. His crew was scared. Some of them were backing away from the screen. But Jake had been in the military for 20 years. He had seen many dangerous things. This was just another problem to solve. "Hello," Jake said to the screen. "I'm Captain Jake Morrison. Welcome to our space. Can I ask why you want us to surrender?" The alien Empress looked surprised. Her silver eyes got wider. "You dare to question me? I have conquered 47 worlds. My empire spans across this entire part of space. Your small station is nothing compared to my power." "I'm sure it's very impressive," Jake said calmly. "But we've never heard of your empire before. Maybe you could tell us more about it?" Empress Veltara raised her hand. Suddenly, Jake's coffee maker started floating in the air. Then his chair lifted up and spun around slowly. The tools on Lisa's desk began dancing in circles above her head. "This is the power of my mind," the Empress said. "I can move things without touching them. I can read thoughts. I can destroy your station with a single thought. Do you understand now why you must surrender?" Jake watched his coffee maker float around the room. It was certainly interesting. "That's a neat trick," he said. "Are all your people able to do that?" The Empress looked confused. She had expected Jake to be afraid. She had expected him to fall on his knees and beg for mercy. Instead, he was asking questions like a curious student. "Yes," she said slowly. "All Zephyrians have these powers. We are superior to every other race in the galaxy. That is why we rule over them." "I see," Jake said. He turned to Lisa. "Dr. Chen, are you recording all of this?" "Yes, sir," Lisa said. "Everything is being saved to our computers." Jake turned back to the screen. "Empress Veltara, I appreciate you taking the time to talk with us, but I need to discuss this with my leaders on Earth before I can give you an answer about surrendering. How much time can you give us?" The Empress stared at him. In all her years of conquest, no one had ever asked for time to think about surrendering. Usually, primitive races either attacked her ships and died quickly, or they gave up immediately. When they saw her power, You want time to think about it?" she asked. "Well, yes," Jake said. "This is a big decision. I'm just the captain of a research station. I don't have the authority to surrender an entire planet. I need to talk to people who make those kinds of choices." The Empress was quiet for a long moment. Jake could see other aliens moving around behind her. They looked just as confused as she did. "Very well," she finally said. "You have 72 of your Earth hours to contact your leaders and arrange for surrender. After that, we will take your world by force." That's very generous of you, Jake said. Thank you. The screen went black. The floating objects in the room gently lowered back down to their normal places. Jake's crew stood in silence, looking at him. Sir, Amy said quietly, what do we do now? Jake picked up his broken coffee mug from the floor. First, we send a message to Earth and tell them what happened. Then we learn everything we can about these Zephyrians. And Amy? Yes, sir? Make more coffee. This is going to be a long day. While Jake's crew started working, the Zephyrian ships waited silently in space. On the biggest ship, Empress Veltara sat on her throne thinking about the strange human captain. He had not been afraid of her. He had not even seemed impressed by her power. This was something new, and for the first time in many years, she was not sure what would happen next. Outside the station, stars continued to shine in the darkness, just as they had for billions of years. But something had changed. Two very different kinds of beings had met for the first time, and neither one was quite what the other had expected. Admiral Kate Sullivan was eating dinner with her family when her phone rang. It was the kind of phone call that only came when something very bad was happening. She looked at the caller and saw it was General Command. I have to take this, she told her husband and daughter. She walked into her study and closed the door. Admiral Sullivan here, she said. Kate, we need you at headquarters right now, said the voice on the phone. We just got a message from Captain Morrison at Galileo. 7, we have visitors. Kate felt her stomach drop. In her 25 years in the military, she had never heard that word used in quite that way. What kind of visitors? The kind from very far away. How fast can you get here? 20 minutes, Kate said. She drove through the streets of Geneva, faster than she probably should have. When she arrived at the United Defense Council building, she could see that many other important people were arriving too. Cars and helicopters were bringing in generals, scientists, and world leaders from all over Earth. Inside the main meeting room, Kate saw Captain Morrison's face on the big screen. He looked tired, but calm. Next to his image was a recording of the alien Empress. Play it again, said President Martinez. He was the leader of the American Federation and the current head of the Defense Council. Kate watched the recording of the alien called Empress Veltara. She saw the floating objects and heard the demand for surrender. But what interested her most was how Captain Morrison had handled it. He had been polite but not afraid. He had asked questions instead of panicking. How long do we have? Kate asked. 68 hours now, Morrison said from the screen. The alien ships are just sitting there watching us. My science officer, Dr. Chen, has been trying to learn more about them. Dr. Chen appeared next to Morrison. Admiral, these beings are very advanced. Their ships use technology we don't understand. But there's something interesting. When the Empress used her mental powers, our equipment was still able to record everything normally. It's like her abilities don't affect our machines the same way they affect objects. Kate turned to the room full of leaders. Options? General Roberts, head of Earth's military forces, spoke first. We could evacuate the core worlds and prepare for a long war. With what? Asked Dr. Angela Brown, Earth's top scientist. They have technology that's hundreds of years ahead of us. We could try to negotiate, suggested Ambassador Chen, the head diplomat. Maybe they want something we can give them without a fight. President Martinez shook his head. They want surrender, complete surrender. That's not negotiation. Kate listened to all the ideas. Some people wanted to fight, others wanted to hide. A few suggested trying to make a deal. But Kate was thinking about something else. She was thinking about Captain Morrison and how he had confused the alien Empress just by being normal. I have a different idea, Kate said. Everyone turned to look at her. We invite them to Earth. The room went quiet. Several people started talking at once. Are you crazy? General Roberts said. Bring them here? Think about it, Kate said. This Empress has conquered 47 worlds. She expects us to either attack uselessly or surrender immediately. She doesn't expect us to invite her to dinner. Dr. Brown leaned forward. What would that accomplish? Time, Kate said. And information. If she comes here, we can learn about her and her people. Meanwhile, our best engineers and scientists can study the data Dr. Chen is collecting. She turned to the screen. Captain Morrison, have you noticed anything else unusual about these aliens? Morrison thought for a moment. Well, they seem very confident. Maybe too confident. The Empress was genuinely surprised when I didn't immediately surrender or attack. It's like she's never met anyone who reacted differently. Kate nodded. That confirmed what she was thinking. Dr. Chen, keep studying them. Focus on their psychology as much as their technology. She turned back to the room. I want teams working on 3 things. First, Ben Parker and his engineering group need to analyze every piece of data we have about their ships. Second, Dr. Rivera and the psychology team need to figure out how these aliens think. Third, we prepare a welcome that will keep them off balance. What kind of welcome? President Martinez asked. Kate smiled. The kind that shows them what humanity is really like. Not surrender, not hopeless resistance, something they've never seen before. Over the next day, Earth became very busy. In hidden laboratories, engineer Ben Parker and his team worked without sleeping. They studied the alien ships and tried to understand how they worked. Ben had always been good at taking things apart and putting them back together in new ways. This was just a bigger puzzle than usual. Look at this, Ben said to his assistant, Carol White. He pointed at readings from the alien ships. Their power systems are incredibly efficient, but they're also very rigid. Everything follows exact patterns. What does that mean? Carol asked. It means they think there's only one right way to do things, Ben said. But humans always find different ways to solve problems. In another building, Dr. Alex Rivera was studying videos of the alien Empress. Alex was an expert on how people think and behave, but studying an alien mind was something completely new. She's used to being in control, Alex told his team. Everything about her body language says she expects immediate obedience, but when Captain Morrison acted normally, she didn't know how to respond. So she's never met anyone who wasn't afraid of her? Asked Dr. Kim Park. Exactly. And that might be our advantage, not because we're not afraid, but because we can be afraid and still function normally. Meanwhile, Lieutenant Commander Sam Davis was training volunteer crews at military bases around the world. Sam had been chosen because he was good at teaching people to think quickly and adapt to new situations. Forget everything you know about normal space combat, Sam told his trainees. These aliens have better weapons and faster ships, but they also expect us to fight like everyone else they've conquered, so we won't. What will we do instead? Asked pilot Jenny Adams. We'll be human, Sam said. We'll be unpredictable, creative, and stubborn. We'll use tactics they've never seen because we'll make them up as we go. Back in Geneva, Admiral Sullivan was putting together the final parts of humanity's response. It was risky, maybe even crazy, but it was also very human. She opened a communication channel to Galileo 7. Captain Morrison, please send this message to the Empress. Tell her that Earth's leaders would be honored to meet with her in person. We'll prepare a formal surrender ceremony in New York City. Ask her to bring whoever she wants as witnesses. Morrison looked surprised. Ma'am, are you sure about this? No, Kate said honestly. But I'm sure that surprising her is better than doing what she expects. As the second day ended, Kate stood on the balcony of her office and looked up at the stars. Somewhere up there, an alien Empress was making plans to conquer Earth. But Kate was making plans too. Plans that would show Empress Veltara something no other world had ever shown her. They would show her what it meant to be human. The sky above New York City filled with alien ships. People on the streets stopped and pointed upward. Children pressed their faces against windows to get a better look. News cameras filmed everything as the massive vessels slowly descended through the clouds. Empress Veltara stood on the bridge of her flagship looking down at the human city below. It was larger than she had expected. Millions of humans lived in the tall buildings that reached toward the sky like metal fingers. Empress, said General Kethvar, her military commander. He was taller than her, with darker blue crystal skin and scars from many battles. Are you certain about this? Landing on their world puts us at risk. What risk could these primitives pose? Veltara asked. But even as she said it, she felt something strange. Uncertainty. It was not an emotion she was used to feeling. Her science advisor, Scholar Zilthera, was studying readings from the human city. She was younger than the Empress, with lighter blue skin and curious silver eyes. Empress, their technology is more advanced than we first thought. These buildings are marvels of engineering, and their communication networks span the entire planet. Still primitive compared to ours, the Empress said, but she was starting to wonder why the humans had invited her to their world instead of simply surrendering. The Zephyrian shuttle landed in the courtyard of the United Nations building. Empress Veltara stepped out, followed by her guards and advisors. She wore a crown made of crystalline metal that floated slightly above her head. Her long robes moved in the wind like liquid silver. Admiral Kate Sullivan was waiting for her. Behind Kate stood representatives from every nation on Earth. They were not kneeling or cowering as the Empress had expected. Instead, they stood tall and looked directly at her. "Welcome to Earth, Empress Veltara," Kate said. "Thank you for accepting our invitation." The Empress looked around. Human soldiers stood at attention, but their weapons were not pointed at her. Human civilians watched from behind barriers, but they seemed curious rather than terrified. This was not what usually happened when she arrived to accept a surrender. "Where is your surrender ceremony?" the Empress asked. "Inside," Kate said. "We've prepared something special for you." They walked into the Great Assembly Hall of the United Nations. The room was full of humans from all over the world. Scientists, engineers, artists, teachers, and leaders filled every seat. At the front of the room was a large stage with screens and displays. Empress Veltara took her place on the stage. She expected to hear words of surrender and submission. Instead, Dr. Alex Rivera walked to the center of the stage. Empress Veltara. Dr. Rivera said, "We understand that you have conquered many worlds. We wanted to show you something about humanity before we discuss the future." The screens around the room came to life. They showed images of human history, pictures of early humans surviving ice ages, videos of people rebuilding cities after disasters, footage of astronauts working together in space stations. "Humans have faced extinction many times," Dr. Rivera explained. "Ice ages, volcanic eruptions, plagues, wars. But we always survive. Not because we're the strongest or the smartest, but because we adapt, we change, we find new ways to solve problems." The Empress watched the images with growing confusion. This was not a surrender ceremony. It was something else entirely. Engineer Ben Parker walked onto the stage carrying a device that looked familiar to the Empress. It was clearly based on Zephyrian technology, but it had been changed in ways that seemed impossible. "3 days ago, we didn't know your technology existed," Ben said. "Today we've built this." He activated the device. It created a small floating platform that moved around the room. "We've combined your energy systems with our manufacturing techniques. The result is something neither of our species created alone." Scholar Zilthera stared at the device in shock. "That's impossible," she whispered to the Empress. "It takes our students years to learn to build something like that." "How?" the Empress demanded, speaking louder than she intended. Dr. Lisa Chen stepped forward. She had arrived from Galileo 7 just hours before. "We studied your ships, Empress, but we didn't try to copy them exactly. We asked ourselves how we could make them better, how we could make them work with human technology. But you're primitives," the Empress said. "Your minds are simple, you have no psionic abilities." Captain Jake Morrison walked onto the stage. The Empress recognized him from their first meeting. "Maybe that's our advantage," he said. "We can't move things with our minds, so we had to get really good at moving them with our hands. We can't read thoughts, so we learned to communicate with words and art and music." As if summoned by his words, a human orchestra in the back of the room began to play. The music was unlike anything the Empress had ever heard. It was complex and beautiful, with instruments she didn't recognize creating sounds that made her feel emotions she couldn't name. "This is what we wanted to show you," Admiral Sullivan said, stepping forward. "Humanity doesn't surrender because we don't know how. We've faced impossible odds before, and we've always found a way to not just survive, but to grow stronger." The Empress felt something she had never experienced before. Her legs began to shake slightly. Not from fear exactly, but from a complete inability to understand what was happening. Every other species had either fought uselessly or surrendered immediately. None had ever invited her to a concert. "What do you want from me?" she asked. "We want to understand you," Kate said. "And we want you to understand us. Your empire has conquered through force and fear, but humans have spread across the galaxy through cooperation and curiosity." The Empress looked around the room. Thousands of human faces looked back at her. They were not afraid, but they were not hostile either. They seemed genuinely interested in her and her people. General Kethvar stepped closer to the Empress. "This is a trap," he said quietly. "They're trying to confuse you with their strange rituals." But Scholar Zilthera was studying the hybrid device that Ben Parker had built. "General, look at this technology. They've accomplished in 3 days what our best engineers take months to achieve. How is that possible?" Dr. Rivera overheard her question. "Because we don't assume there's only one right way to do something. Your technology is very advanced, but it follows rigid patterns. Human technology is messier, but it's also more flexible." The Empress sat down heavily in the chair that had been provided for her. Around the room, humans continued their presentations. Artists showed paintings that combined human and alien themes. Scientists explained theories that merged Zephyrian physics with human creativity. Children sang songs they had written about friendship between the stars. For the first time in her long life, Empress Veltara didn't know what to do next. She had come to Earth expecting a simple surrender ceremony. Instead, she had found something that challenged everything she believed about conquest and superiority. As the presentations continued, she found herself genuinely curious about these strange beings who invited their conquerors to dinner and responded to threats with art exhibitions. Her legs continued to tremble, but now she wasn't sure if it was from confusion, fear, or something else entirely. Something that felt almost like wonder. Empress Veltara returned to her flagship feeling more confused than she had ever been in her life. She walked through the crystal corridors of the ship, her footsteps echoing in the silence. Her guards followed at a respectful distance, but they kept glancing at her with worried expressions. In her private chambers, the Empress sat on her floating throne and tried to make sense of what had happened on Earth. The humans had not surrendered. They had not attacked. They had invited her to what they called a cultural exchange, and then shown her things that made no sense according to everything she knew about conquest. General Kethavar entered her chambers without waiting for permission. His dark blue skin was darker than usual, which meant he was angry. "Empress, we must attack now," he said. "These humans are making fools of us. My soldiers are starting to ask questions. They want to know why we haven't simply taken the planet by force." Veltara looked at her general. He had served her for over 200 years. He had helped her conquer dozens of worlds. But now, for the first time, she wasn't sure he was right. "What questions are they asking?" she said. "They want to know why the humans aren't afraid. They want to know how primitives built technology that our best scientists say is impossible. They want to know why you spent an entire day listening to their music and looking at their art instead of accepting their surrender." The Empress felt her hands begin to shake. She pressed them against the arms of her throne to hide the trembling. "And what do you tell them?" "I tell them that you are testing the humans. I tell them that soon you will demonstrate your power and they will submit like all the others." Kethavar stepped closer. "But Empress, even I am beginning to wonder." "What are you waiting for?" Before Veltara could answer, Scholar Zilthara burst into the room. She was carrying a datapad, and her silver eyes were bright with excitement. "Empress, you must see this," Zilthara said. "I've been analyzing the human technology they showed us. It's not just impossible, it's brilliant." "Explain," the Empress said. Zilthara activated her datapad. Holographic displays filled the air around them. "Look at how they modified our energy systems. We design everything to work in perfect harmony, with no wasted energy and no random variations. But the humans added what they call controlled chaos. They deliberately introduced small random elements that make the system more flexible. General Kethvar snorted. Chaos is weakness, order is strength. That's why we rule and they serve. But that's just it, Zilthara said. Their chaos makes them stronger, not weaker. When something unexpected happens, our systems break down, because they're designed for perfection. Their systems adapt because they're designed for change. The Empress studied the holographic displays. She could see what Zilthara meant. The human modifications were messier than pure Zephyrian technology, but they were also more robust, more flexible, more alive. There's something else, Zilthara continued. I've been monitoring human communications across their planet. Do you know what they're doing right now? Preparing for war? Kethvar suggested. Building shelters? The Empress guessed. Building more hybrid technology, Zilthara said. But here's the strange part. They're not keeping it secret. They're sharing everything freely. Every new discovery is immediately broadcast to their entire species. Scientists on one continent are building on work started by engineers on another continent. They're advancing faster than should be possible. General Kethvar looked confused. Why would they share their weapons technology? Don't they understand that knowledge is power? I think they understand something we don't, the Empress said quietly. She was thinking about the presentation she had seen on Earth. The humans working together, the orchestra playing music where every instrument was different, but they all created something beautiful together. Suddenly, alarms started ringing throughout the ship. A communications officer's voice came over the speakers. Empress, we're detecting human ships approaching. The three Zephyrians rushed to the command bridge. On the main screen, they could see dozens of human vessels emerging from behind Earth's Narration. But these weren't the military ships Kethvar had expected. They were converted civilian craft, cargo haulers, research vessels, even what looked like tourist ships. What are they doing? Kethvar asked. Captain Morrison's face appeared on the communications screen. He was aboard one of the human ships and he looked as calm as ever. Empress Veltara, I hope you don't mind the company. We thought you might be interested in seeing what we've been working on. The Empress stared at the human ships. Each one had been modified with the hybrid technology she had seen demonstrated on Earth. But more than that, each one was different. No two ships looked exactly alike. Captain Morrison, she said, what is the purpose of this fleet? Well, Morrison said, Admiral Sullivan thought you might like to see how quickly humans can adapt when we put our minds to it. These ships were all built in the last 48 hours. Impossible, General Kethvar said. It takes months to build. A single warship. They're not warships, Morrison explained. They're exploration vessels, research ships. Some of them are mobile laboratories. A few are even equipped for first contact with other species we might meet. Scholar Zilthara was frantically scanning the human ships with her instruments. Empress, he's telling the truth. These ships aren't designed for combat, they're designed for… I'm not sure what they're designed for. Dr. Lisa Chen appeared next to Morrison on the screen. They're designed for discovery, Scholar Zilthara. Each ship is equipped to study different aspects of the universe. We've combined your energy technology with our curiosity. The result is a fleet that can go anywhere and learn anything. The Empress felt something cold in her stomach. You built an entire fleet in 2 days. Oh, this isn't the entire fleet, Morrison said cheerfully. This is just the first group. We have construction facilities all over the solar system working on more ships. Different designs, different purposes. We figure by next week we'll have enough ships to explore every star system within 50 light years. General Kethvar turned to the Empress. This proves they're a threat. We must destroy them now before they become too powerful. But the Empress was thinking about something else. In all her years of conquest, she had never seen anything like this. When she threatened other species, they either built weapons to fight her or prepared to hide from her. The humans were building ships to explore the galaxy. Captain Morrison, she said, aren't you afraid that we'll attack your ships? Morrison looked genuinely surprised. Why would you do that? We're not threatening you. We're just curious about the universe. There's room for everyone among the stars. Scholar Zilthera stepped forward. Captain, may I ask you something? Your species has no psionic abilities. How do you coordinate your shipbuilding efforts across multiple worlds? Communication, Dr. Chen answered. Lots and lots of communication. Every team shares their progress with every other team. When someone solves a problem, everyone knows about it within minutes. When someone has a new idea, thousands of other people start building on it immediately. The Empress sat down in her command chair. Her legs were shaking again, and this time she couldn't hide it. Her empire controlled vast amounts of space through fear and superior technology, but these humans were spreading across space through curiosity and cooperation. Empress, General Kethvar said urgently, we must act. If we let them continue building ships, they'll what? The Empress asked. Explore the galaxy, discover new things, make friends with other species. For the first time in her life, Empress Veltara was beginning to understand that there might be more than one way to be powerful, and for the first time in her life, that understanding made her legs tremble with something that felt very much like fear. 6 months had passed since the first contact at Galileo 7. Empress Veltara stood on the observation deck of a space station that shouldn't have existed. It was built from both human and Zephyrian technology, floating in the space between Earth and Mars. Through the transparent walls, she could see humans and Zephyrians working side by side. Her legs were trembling again. They had been trembling a lot lately. Admiral Kate Sullivan walked up beside her. The human leader looked tired, but happy. The construction crews finished the new sections yesterday, Kate said. We now have living space for 5,000 beings from both our species. Veltara watched a group of human children playing with young Zephyrians in the station's central garden. The children were floating in the low gravity, laughing and spinning, through the air together. Some of them were learning to move small objects with their minds taught by Zephyrian instructors. Others were teaching the young aliens how to play human games. How many of my people have chosen to stay? The Empress asked. About 300 so far, Kate said. Scholar Zilthera says more arrive every week. They're mostly scientists and engineers who are fascinated by human technology and methods. The Empress nodded slowly. Scholar Zilthara had been the first to request permission to remain with the humans. She had said that human science was too interesting to leave behind. Now she worked in the station's main laboratory, leading a team of both species as they developed new technologies that neither could have created alone. And General Kethvar? Veltara asked. Kate's expression became more serious. He returned to your empire 2 months ago. He said that watching Zephyrians and humans work together was making him uncomfortable. Veltara understood. Kethvar had spent his entire life believing that the strong should rule over the weak. The idea that strength could come from cooperation, instead of domination, had shaken everything he believed about the universe. Captain Jake Morrison appeared in the corridor behind them. He was now the commander of the station's defense fleet, though defense was probably the wrong word. The ships under his command were designed for exploration and peaceful contact with other species. Several had already left the solar system to make contact with other civilizations in the galaxy. Empress, Morrison said, we just received a message from the exploration ship Friendship. They've made contact with a species called the Valorians. Apparently, the Valorians have been hiding from your empire for over 50 years. Hiding? Veltara asked. They're not a warlike people, Morrison explained. When your empire expanded into their territory, they moved their entire civilization to hidden bases in asteroid fields and nebulae. They've been living in fear ever since. Kate turned to face the Empress. Captain Reynolds is requesting permission to tell them about the changes happening here, to let them know that not all contact with your empire means conquest. Veltara felt her hands begin to shake along with her legs. Captain Reynolds was human, but her crew included both humans and Zephyrians. The idea of her former subjects working with humans to convince other species that the Zephyrian Empire was no longer a threat was almost too much to process. What would you tell them? She asked. Morrison looked thoughtful. The truth, that we've found a better way, That conquest and cooperation don't have to be opposites. That the galaxy is big enough for everyone to find their own path among the stars. Dr. Lisa Chen joined the group. She had been working with Zephyrian biologists to study the differences and similarities between their species. Empress, we've made an interesting discovery. Our two species are more alike than we thought. Zephyrians develop psionic abilities because your brains are naturally connected to quantum fields. Humans don't have that connection, but our brains are more flexible in other ways. What does that mean? Velterra asked. It means we complement each other, Lisa explained. Zephyrian minds can influence matter directly, but you think in very structured patterns. Human minds can't move objects, but we can imagine possibilities that you might never consider. Together we can accomplish things that neither species could do alone. Scholar Zilthara appeared at the entrance to the observation deck. Her skin was brighter than usual, which meant she was excited about something. Empress, you must come to the laboratory. We've just completed the new ship design. They followed Zilthara through the station's corridors. Humans and Zephyrians moved past them, some working, some talking, some simply enjoying each other's company. Children from both species ran through the hallways, playing games that mixed human imagination with Zephyrian abilities. In the main laboratory, a holographic display showed the design for a new type of spacecraft. It was beautiful in a way that neither pure human nor pure Zephyrian technology had ever achieved. The ship looked organic and technological at the same time, with flowing curves that suggested both artistry and efficiency. We call it the Bridge Builder class, Zilthara explained. It's designed specifically for making peaceful contact with new species. The ship has medical facilities, translation equipment, cultural exchange centers, and scientific laboratories. Most importantly, it's completely unarmed. Unarmed? Velterra asked. How can it defend itself? Engineer Ben Parker stepped forward. He had been working with Zephyrian engineers for months, and his latest creations were marvels that neither species could have imagined alone. It doesn't defend itself, Empress. It befriends everything it meets. The ship is designed to offer help, not threats, to share knowledge, not demand tribute, to explore and learn, not conquer and rule. Velterra stared at the ship design. It represented everything that her empire was not. Where Zephyrian ships were designed to intimidate and overwhelm, this ship was designed to welcome and include. Where her fleet spread fear across the galaxy, these ships would spread friendship. How many of these ships will you build? She asked. As many as we need, Admiral Sullivan said. Our goal is to contact every species in the galaxy peacefully, to create a network of cooperation instead of a system of domination. Dr. Alex Rivera, who had been studying both human and Zephyrian psychology, joined the conversation. Empress, we've learned something important about leadership. Your empire stays together through fear of your power. But fear only works until someone stops being afraid. Human societies stay together differently, he continued. We create bonds through shared goals and mutual respect. It's messier and takes longer, but it's also more stable. People choose to participate instead of being forced to submit. Velterra walked back to the observation deck. The others followed her, giving her space to think. She looked out at the stars and tried to imagine what the galaxy might look like in 100 years. Would it be an empire ruled by fear, or a community built on cooperation? Her legs trembled more violently now. Not from fear, she realized, but from a feeling she had never experienced before. It was the overwhelming realization that everything she had believed about power and leadership had been wrong. She had spent centuries building an empire through conquest, but these humans had shown her something that was far more powerful than any army or fleet. They had shown her how to build relationships that made people want to be together instead of forcing them to submit. Admiral Sullivan approached her carefully. Empress, I have a question for you. Yes? Your empire spans hundreds of worlds. You have millions of subjects who obey you because they're afraid of your power. But do any of them actually like you? The question hit Velterra like a physical blow. She thought about her generals, her advisors, her subjects across the empire. They all obeyed her. They all feared her. but she couldn't think of a single one who had ever chosen to spend time with her simply because they enjoyed her company. "No," she whispered. Kate stepped closer. "It's not too late to change that. You could return to your empire and start building something different, something based on cooperation instead of conquest." "But I don't know how," Veltara said. Her voice was shaking now, along with her legs and hands. "I've only ever known how to rule through power." Captain Morrison smiled. "That's okay. We didn't know how to build hybrid technology 6 months ago either. But we learned. And we learned faster because we had teachers." He gestured to the station around them. "You could have teachers too. Humans and Zephyrians working together to help you transform your empire. It won't be easy and it won't be fast. But it can be done." Veltara looked around at the faces surrounding her. Humans and Zephyrians, all looking at her with expressions she had never seen before. Not fear or submission, but hope and genuine care. "Why would you help me?" she asked. "I came here to conquer your world," Dr. Lisa Chen answered. "Because that's what humans do. We see someone struggling and we help. We see someone who's lost, and we offer directions. We see someone who's made mistakes and we show them how to do better." For the first time in her life, Empress Veltara began to cry. The tears were silver, like her eyes, and they floated in the low gravity like tiny stars. "My legs won't stop trembling," she said. "I can't even stand." Admiral Sullivan reached out and gently took her hand. "That's okay. We'll help you learn to walk in a new direction." As Veltara looked out at the stars, she began to imagine a different kind of empire. One built on friendship instead of fear. One where beings chose to work together because the